Counts. All right. So, hello, class. How are we doing today? It
Good.
is
Good.
class number 2 of Tableau. And hopefully, Monday was a long time ago. So, hopefully, everyone still remembers what we talked about. But thankfully, I remembered to include a review. So, in case you did forget, we will talk about it again. This is the same slide from last week, just going over um, just some of the key links of where to get data, also to explore some JavaScript. And the first thing that I'm going to talk about is laws of UX and kind of start to a little bit of a discussion of how UX design and data visualization share some principles and how research in UX design has impacted or may impact data visualization. Because if you think about it, data visualization is visual language, like I was talking about last class. UX design, especially when you're working with interfaces, a lot of times you're going to be using icons. So whenever you're using a phone or a website, you really instantly know if something is well designed or not well designed. Based on if it's frustrating, if it meets your expectations, the menus are expected where they're supposed to be. And UX design is a visual language too. It's just one is geared more towards interaction, while data visualization is geared more towards insights and information. So this is actually a really nice website, and we're going to switch over here. Okay, so this is laws of UX, and this has all of the main principles that UX designers have, or all the research has goes into design decisions. And so, what's different between a UX designer and a visual designer, one of the main things is, visual designer does research too, but it's not necessarily a functional design. It's more of an aesthetic, a brand, to try and create an image that is both consistent and resonates with what you would want. So like a food company is going to have like green colors, it's going to be fresh. Tech companies, a lot of them are blue, something that's kind of youthful and friendly and that type of thing. While UX design is more of both understanding how people interact with user interfaces, but then also just individual research on just testing like new concepts and new ideas. And there's a thing called conducting like a heuristic evaluation of where you go through UX design best practices based on a long amount of research that's happened that you can base your decisions off of. And that's something that is, there's not something there's not as something that is as clear cut or as agreed upon in data visualization, just because that the research is just different enough to where there isn't really agreed upon principles as much as UX design. And so some of these are really interesting because they both impact data visualization and UX design, but a little bit differently. So aesthetic usability effect. So that is basically as it says here, users often perceive something aesthetically as pleasing design that is more usable. So that's something that's going to be always good or almost always good for UX design, because if you have a well-designed website, it's going to encourage the user to have confidence in it's going to encourage the user to have confidence in the website. So like that's especially important for something like e-commerce or anything where trust is important, because a well-designed app is going to elicit more trust from the user to where that they're willing to pay for something or give up their user information, their personal information. And you can see that too, like even in the real world, like if you're at a gas pump, if there's a gas pump that's brand new, maybe that you feel more comfortable about putting your credit card in that pump compared to something else that's in disrepair. If they don't take care of their business well, then it will lead to people to think, well, how will they protect my data or my other financial information? But in data visualization, it's not as straightforward as that, because if I am always creating a well-designed or a data visualization that's well-designed, that's going to create a perception of something that's aesthetically pleasing, that's going to lead to more confidence in what I'm saying. So if the audience that I'm presenting information to is more confident in my insights based on my design, that could be a good thing. But can anyone here think of ways why that might not be a good thing?
Just trying to make sure I'm catching you correctly. So having a good design and a great aesthetic that helps users follow the action that's expected for them to follow is usually good, but is there times when it's not? Did I catch you correctly?
Yep. Is there a time when like something that is well designed that leads to greater confidence in what you're sharing is a bad thing?
If what you're sharing isn't accurate or true data?
Correct. So if you don't have confidence in your data quality and you focus all your time on design and you're showing something that way, you can create an instance where you're generating more confidence in the information you're sharing than actually should be, that would naturally occur if it was put straightforward, or if all of those if all those caveats were understood by the audience. And most of the time when someone is designing the data visualization and sharing it, especially something on social media that's trying to get clicks, you could have it where you are creating an inaccuracy based on just how you're scaling data and you're just kind of like lying just based on bad practice. But you can also bring in bias. And there is a segment of the data viz community, especially from the academics, that use R, who refuse to use Adobe Illustrator or other design tools because they think that making the information like a scatter plot or something else like that that's research focused actually brings in bias. But I would say that in most cases, it's probably better to have something that is well designed, but you should just have that in the back of your mind that you are creating that impact when you do an improved design for an audience, that you are creating a confidence. And so you have to be really careful about what you're presenting and if there is issues or if there are caveats to be able to present them. So the Doherty threshold, that is something like when you're talking about like how a user interacts, especially with Tableau, that is very important. If you're creating dashboards, especially for someone else, and you get requirements that's asking for everything in the kitchen sink in your Tableau dashboard, that creates performance issues. One of the biggest hangups to an enjoyable experience, which will allow someone to dig into the data and explore it a longer time to be able to generate more insights, is performance issues that leads to long loading times when you're switching and slicing and dicing. And so then, you may not think that 30 seconds is that big of a deal, but you start adding that up. Do you really think about how many questions you're asking in a single session in Tableau, or when you're looking at a data set? And 30 seconds may not be long if you're just asking 5 questions, but if you're asking 100 or 200 questions, all of a sudden that's taking up most of your day. And now if you expand that out to an organization of over 10,000 people, well, now you have 30 seconds times 10,000 times the number of questions they have per day. So that could be a real huge number fast, and it can eat up a lot of resources too. So that's always something to think about. Performance really matters, especially when you start scaling it. It's kind of like if you're ever in a meeting or you're conducting a presentation, in your perspective, it's only 5 seconds, but depending on how many people are there, that 5 seconds, or not 5 seconds, sorry, 5 minutes, if you're doing a 5-minute like stand-up or something like that, if you have 10 people there, that 5 minutes is actually 50 minutes. So those types of things can just really add up fast, and especially with performance. Jacob's Law is one of the primary ones in UX design. So Jacob's Law is essentially, you should design things that people are expecting, that they're familiar with. So if I'm designing a new interface for an e-commerce site, I would want to conduct a competitive analysis from a visual perspective to see what the other common design patterns are for e-commerce. So if there is like Amazon, Target, Walmart, you don't want to venture too far away from those common patterns, because that's what users expect. And if you do move away from those common design patterns, then you want to test for it. And you want to conduct like a lot of usability testing and make sure that what you're doing is going to be something that's intuitive or naturally intuitive, because people don't like to think. They want something that's easy and convenient. They have a very low threshold for being frustrated with an experience. Now, in data visualization, this is one of those interesting discussion points that is kind of similar to the aesthetic usability effect, where it's not as clear cut. And I think I talked a little bit about this on Monday, where, let me actually present this as a question. Can someone kind of describe why it would be important to have data visualizations that people are familiar with? Or have seen before?
Well, quite often, most people don't have time for anything. And so if they're going to have to spend time first understanding it, they're going to lose the impact that you're hoping to make with them. And so having something that they can immediately look at allows them to quickly get on to the next thing. Or they might just make assumptions and completely miss what it is that you're trying to help visualize.
Right. And if you present something that somebody has just never seen before, like it's like an alien spaceship that you just landed on their desk, what do you think their initial first reaction is going to be?
Good chance they might just straight up reject it.
Yeah, and it depends on the person. Some people like novelty, right? But some people are like, "Whoa, this is not an Excel spreadsheet. What are you doing?" Which is very common. Like I deal with that every day. So, but But then on the other side, and that's true, you want things to look the same. But do you see any value in presenting information in ways no one has ever thought of before?
Well, certainly. And I think this ties back to your original question of know your audience, right? So if you know your audience well and you feel like this will help, like they're ready for it, and then also this has helped have a conversation that you know needs to be had and they're receptive to it. Absolutely.
Yes, I think it is know your audience, but I also think there is an aspect of data visualization that is outside of the user research paradigm, in that there is some things that are in the data that no one's going to be able to think to ask for unless you're actually exploring that data. And, you just are just there at the right time, at the right, you have the right inspiration to kind of ask that question. And it's almost just like you're almost like inventing something of just like an ingenious idea. And then you share that idea, like, well, I just saw this in the data. Is this like, and then you can talk to the domain, people with more domain expertise in what you're looking at, is like, this doesn't make sense. Like, this can't be right. Right. And, I think there is some of that, just like innovation and just finding insights and just kind of playing with the data, where you're just not necessarily like looking for something specific. So an example of this, in like, if I was like UX design or product design, if I'm designing a new product, one of the things, if I'm conducting user research, that I shouldn't do is ask the customer to solve the problem, because that's typically the a terrible way to design products, because people don't know what they want, or they don't know how to solve for it. And that's why, when you're conducting that, you're not asking them like, what kind of product do you want? And you're more asking them about their problems and trying to better understand their habits and behaviors. And I think there's some of that too, or a lot of that too, in data visualization, where most of the time you're going to see the process of asking a stakeholder what they want to visualize. Well, how do they know what to visualize? Especially if they have no idea, like they don't have that type of experience of looking at the different options. They don't know the design decisions between a distribution versus a correlation versus a trend. And so getting too specific on asking stakeholders on what they want is oftentimes a suboptimal path to creating the insights and developing the information from the data that I think adds the most value, that would actually reach the potential that was there, based on the time, place, data, and people available to make decisions. So it's a give and take. You want to always include the user, but you also want to just, hey, what happens if we just look at data and kind of go between those two lenses? Because you can go off the wrong track by being too focused on any one of them. And I think a balanced approach is the best one. And usability testing, especially if you're not doing a lot of heavy user research in the beginning, usability testing is really essential to make sure that what you're doing, especially if it's new data visualization, to make sure how to present it. Maybe it's the answers to pull back and not have that much of an outlandish of a chart, or it could be something as providing, kind of the breadcrumbs through an experience, through what's known in UX design as learnability. You make it so that a user can learn something, that they can kind of go beyond and improve their data visualization skills as they're going through the experience. Because if you are only presenting things that people are familiar with in data visualization, then they are basically kind of stuck in a box there, right? Like, you could have an infinite number of ways of presenting information, but if they are only open to looking at it in a certain number of ways, that really limits on how they can see and perceive the world, which really limits their ideas that they can develop and the insights that they could generate by looking at the data and better understanding what the actual ground truth is. Are there any questions on that? Any disagreements? No? Wow. So there's a lot of these types of property or rules, kind of like laws of proximity, where I don't know if anyone's familiar with Gestalt principles, design principles, but there's basically patterns in data. And, a lot of designers look at that from a perspective of just like creating an aesthetic that is pleasing, or from a UX perspective, just grouping information so that's easier to digest. It's like if I'm designing a blog post, there's certain design decisions that I'm going to make that's going to make it easier to read, like my font size and my typeface and, the colors. Like if I were to, create a neon blue background for a blog, that's probably not the best idea. You have a lot of angry people with eyes that are going to hurt after one paragraph and probably waste your time on all that writing. So, same things apply. That's why it's understanding the underlying design principle is important. But, law of proximity, that's basically any of the patterns of the data that, and I got a slide later to kind of show this a little bit better, but any of the patterns that you can make, is basically a Gestalt principle. And you can use that to really just like make it easier to see information. And so like things that you want to show that's similar, you want to show that's kind of like an apples to apples, then, you want to do that throughout the process. And then things that are different, you want to be able to show that too, before you even kind of think about like what's important. And let's see. I'm not as familiar with the law of prognons, but people perceive, interpret ambiguous or complex images as simplest form as possible because it requires the least cognitive effort. That's something I need to look more into, but that is something that you will see in data visualization. And I think it's another one of those really interesting decision points that is not as straightforward as you think, because you will often hear from the data viz community that simple is always best. And generally, yes, I would say that you would want to have a simple design. You don't want to have a giant cluttered mess of things. However, it's not always like objectively you can say that simple is always the best, because what happens if the phenomena that you're trying to communicate is just very complex, and some of that might be lost if you do not accurately show that complexity visually. There's just no other way to be able to communicate that complexity outside of just visualizing something more complex. So again, the one thing that I just caution against is to get to have too much data viz orthodoxy, because it's a lot. It's good to have basic rules, and generally it's good to be able to kind of have a general way of doing things and have a source of your own best practices that these are good decisions in all cases, because the world's complex and you're not going to get perfect. You don't want to be a perfectionist. But you always want to have in your back of your mind that there might be another way to approach a problem. An example of this, and I remember this, seeing a presentation about a data viz, about designing a data viz product from an actual product designer about 3 years ago, and made an excellent point that if they're making an interface for an air traffic controller, that if you created too simple of an interface with the data visualization aspects, or the data and how it's represented is too simplistic, then that it doesn't provide the information that the air traffic control person actually needs to do their job. And in that case, that more complexity and a denser interface is actually something that is preferred, because they need that information. And that goes to what Michael answered earlier, that you have to really understand your user. And that's why user research is so important. You can't just look at data and say, okay, simple is always best, and not really consider who the user is. Because then that will get you burned many times. And if you're not testing, you'll never know. And especially if you're not looking at behavior data or activity data, like analytics on, like, if people are using dashboards and that type of thing, then you'll just be creating dashboards and you'll never know if they're successful or not, or where you can make improvements. Okay, so Miller's Law. Miller's Law is one of the most important laws as a data visualization person. If there's anything that you get out of today's class, it's Miller's Law. So it's basically a person can have an average of 7 plus or minus 2 items in their working memory. And what does that mean? Well, this actually numbers, I believe, perceived to be higher than what the actual number is. I think the number is probably lower than what Miller's Law states. My general rule is 4 to 6, and 4 is better. 2 is best. Basically, the fewer number that you can get in comparing things, the better. So an example of that would be is you'll see a lot of beginners in data visualization that will have like a full discrete color scale with 12 colors on it that are highly saturated, and it is very distracting. And there's very little reason most of the time to be able to where you'd want to show 12 things at the same time. And this is actually something that UX designers struggle with a great deal. I actually get questions from UX designers sometimes about data visualization, because they're being asked to design more data visualization. And that's one of the biggest things that I see it, and it's like nails on chalkboard when I see all the colors. Because generally, since the UX designers don't look at this type of problem as much as a data viz person does, they'll go to Dribble or they'll go to other design websites and just kind of copy what other people are doing. And unfortunately, it's very hard to show that type of interactivity, and to basically what's known as user flow in UX design is a lot more challenging. And so what ends up happening, both beginners and UX designers alike, is that they just default to what's easiest to be able to show. And that is that, hey, this color here represents this category, and this color here represents a different category, until they get to like 8 or 10. And most of the time, users, like if we're going back to like how we're doing user research, they're going to want more. And so if you say that, well, actually, I'm trying to keep these colors down to like 6, for comparison purposes, and your stakeholder says that, well, no, actually, I want to have like 12. Well, how do you show that with colors? And you really can't do that well. And, you could be the best designer in the world, and it's just not going to be something that's going to be effective, and it's probably not going to look good either. So generally, and I'll go through a couple of these in later classes, but generally it's better to try and reduce that. And there's different techniques that you can do with that. But I will talk, or I'll go through a little bit of an example to kind of highlight like what having too many bright colors will do, and kind of a different approach to do that. Pareto principle, another really important one. Is anybody familiar with Pareto? 80-20 rule. So just naturally, I think in pretty much in just out in nature and just in human activity, you will often see a relationship of 80-20, which is 80%, or I should say 20% of an input leads to 80% of the output. So an example of that would be the top 20% largest companies represent the top 80% of market cap in the stock market, or the top 20 wealthy people represent, a large magnitude of wealth compared to, the rest of the population. And so why that's important is because you always want to, when you're finding insights, is to really find those kind of Pareto relationships. What's actually driving sales? What's actually driving my expenses? Who are my most important customers? Or who are the top 20 students? And like that leads to a lot of questions, and you fix those top, like those ones that are having those outsized impacts on whatever you're looking at, then that's going to make a huge improvement on the overall top line number. And so a lot of times when you have a KPI dashboard for just looking at your numbers and checking things in your performance, it doesn't really tell you what's driving those most of the time. Or, okay, we're doing bad. What now? So you have to go in and explore that. The nice thing with Pareto is if you find that Pareto relationship, that, what is like actually driving things up or down, then you could either use that as an opportunity or as an action item to be able to fix. That's going to quickly rectify the situation.
Is that kind of like the people right on the bubble, where if you could just get them to perform at a certain level, that'll make a huge difference in the outcome?
Yeah.
One's on the very extreme. It seems not to be able to be overcome.
Yeah, and I think generally, like if you think of outliers, a lot of times statisticians are going to try to avoid outliers because they're trying to communicate what is average or what is expected, what is normal. While data visualization, I find where you're a lot of times looking at outliers more often, asking a little bit of a different question, where we are looking at what is normal, like I said in last class, but we also want to understand like what caused an outlier to happen. And since it's just more iterative and faster, there's a lot more often you'll see that the quantitative research will lead to qualitative research and investigation, where you see an outlier, where you see normal, and then that leads you to conduct a user interview or observation, some type of user engagement to better understand exactly why those numbers are happening. And so like for a student example, a grade is just a grade, but it doesn't tell you the whole story. There's, one student gets a C and another student gets a C. There might be a very different reasons on why they received that same grade. And so the numbers tell you that it's kind of like a flag. It alerts you to issues. It alerts you to at things to look for. But you really need to have that qualitative and additional investigation to be able to get the context on understanding why the numbers the way they are. And von Restorff effect. And this goes back into that example I was talking about before about Miller's Law. So this is perfect right here. When you have similar objects as present, the one that differs is most likely remembered. So if if you have a bunch of things that are bright colored, and the way to think about this is if you are showing that everything is important, then nothing is important, because you can only use bright colors so many times to highlight what you want people to focus their attention on. So the more that I'm causing a user to look at things kind of all over the screen, the less that they will be able to see what's important from the insight. And so a lot of times the answer may not be making your colors brighter or making something bigger. It's to tone down the other things that are less important, the noise. Sometimes you want to provide that context. Like, so an example would be is you might have a scatter plot, but then you're focused in on one single point. You can gray that out, use a neutral color, desaturate it, and then make them smaller, while the one data point that you're trying to communicate, make that larger, prominent, and brighter color. So those are the ones that I think are the most important to think about with data visualization, but I encourage you to investigate the other ones. It's a really good website, and they'll take you to the original research that that goes into how they developed those different laws. Okay, I'm going to go back to the presentation. Are there any questions on that?
My presentation disappeared though. Was it supposed to?
Yeah, I'm switching it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not that slick, so. Okay. All right, we're back. So this is a link. So I have that in the Slack. I won't go through this right now, but this is a good link to look at your own time of just visual perception. It kind of goes into working memory and goes into Miller's law about how people can only focus on information, only so much information at the same time. So one of your goals is to try and make it as easy as possible to understand and to see information without being too cluttered or complex in most cases, as we discussed, to where it's easier for people to understand. And then here's also Gestalt principles apply to data visualization, another article I encourage to read. Okay, so pre-attentive attributes of visual perception. What does this remind everyone of in Tableau?
The marks menu.
Exactly. So the marks menu is exactly what this is that trying to show that difference of, creating that that pattern where people will see what you think is most important for them to see. So if something is important, it's going to be larger. If it's not important, it's going to be smaller. If it needs focus, then you're going to have a higher saturated color using hue or intensity with color. There's different accuracy based on the visual method used. One of the best ones to always consider is position. Bar charts, where dots are on a scatter plot, all very visually accurate. While if you look at some of the other ones like blur and orientation, that's more fuzzy. Like, what is that? There's not a lot of precision with that, and it's really difficult for people to see that, including like the width. Width is very difficult to be able to tell magnitude compared to length. in the form, the first two boxes. And so that also gets into pie charts, how people interpret angles versus a bar chart, especially if it doesn't have a common baseline. And all those things will go into consideration of what is the best design decision, because at the end result of what you're creating, is more than just getting user acceptance. It's to provide that visual accuracy that is representing the underlying ground truth, which requires data quality and accurate statistics and data visualization that is designed that doesn't include bias, which is a tall order for even the most seasoned data visualization person. So it's one of those ideals that is rarely achieved, but it is something that is still worth pursuing. Okay, I think we're at a time for a break. So how about 7:06? I'll give you an extra 7:07. You get one extra minute.
All right.
All right.
Cool. Hey, Ronnie, did that help?
Let me see real quick. Did you send me something else?
Yeah, I put it into a landscape orientation.
Oh, okay. And a link then. Let me go to Slack and just try it quick. I was just pulling them up one slide at a time, but it did. Gracias.
Cool. Yeah, you bet.
All right. I got to go
See you
fix
in a
my
few.
hot tub real quick. Bye.
There you go. Bye. Who's what? Yeah.
And we're back. Or are we? Oh, there's one. There's two. Two of three. So as we wait for Ronnie, which is there's Ronnie. Which is the law that causes people to be confident or feel good when they see something that is well designed?
Aesthetic usability effect.
Correct. Very good. Which is a law that says that people have limited working memory?
Miller's Law.
Very good. Which is the 80-20 rule?
That's the Pareto principle.
That's correct. Very good, Ronnie.
That's when I was keyed in on, because it's 5% of the teachers or 5% of the kids who do the cause all the discipline or the referrals or the.
That's perfectly
attention.
stated. Yes.
Yes.
I was gonna say it was next to Pakistan.
What's that?
It was like just to the left of the one on the right, which when I first saw it, I went, Pakistan?
Oh.
All right. So now I'm going to do a small activity, although it's hands-on for me, not anyone else. So I'm sorry for that, but really just like to drive home the point of colors, because it is something that is just one of the more common mistakes I see. If you see like my screen kind of like going like crazy sometimes, it's because the wheel on my mouse is like not great, and so that it will go the wrong direction sometimes.
I can relate.
Okay, good. I really need to buy a new mouse, but it's been on the to-do list for a while, so I'm not very optimistic that's going to get done anytime soon. Okay. So it looks like I'm most doing like a Gestalt design pattern here. Or a very boring bar chart. Or it could be a sidewalk. Or if I added some lines here, it could be railroad tracks.
Piano keys.
Piano keys. Very good. Yeah, this is almost like an ink blot. What does everybody see? So I'm going to make this look a little bit more like a bar chart where we have variation. Okay. So we have a bar chart. Right now, we have things that are gray. Or the color is gray. And when you're picking a color and you're trying to understand colors, HSB is your best bet. HSL isn't bad either. Does anybody know what HSB stands for? It's 3 words.
Hue, saturation, balance.
Close. You got the first 2 right. The last one is brightness. And so if you ever just look at RGB and just like, how do people pick colors? Like this whole thing just makes no sense to me. Well, RGB is like really difficult to really kind of, for a person to think through of like, okay, how do I pick colors? It's more for like computer generated stuff that it was originally designed for. HSB, like if you're trying to learn how to like pick colors and think about color, I highly recommend you looking at anything regarding HSB when you're doing that, or when you're starting to pick your own colors. I would use that system because it's so much easier to learn. So basically, hue is this top line here of like what shade of color do you want? Do you want red? Do you want green, blue? Saturation is, how much that color is going to be present, and the brightness is basically 0 to 100, between like the very lightest, or kind of using white, to 0, which makes it a very dark color. So saturation, so the difference is saturation, like when you have a very low saturation, it's very dull. You're removing color. When it's highly saturated, you're adding color, and it's very bright. So when I say a highly saturated color, I'm talking about picking something on the color wheel that's got a very high number for the S in the HSB, which is also likely going to be very high on the brightness. So if you are using a highly saturated, high bright color, then you really want to be cognizant of that, because it's going to attract a lot of attention. So I'm going to change my grays a little bit. So just to kind of show how this works, I'm going to go 214, which is a dark blue, or darker blue, or I guess a regular blue. Then saturation. So it doesn't take much saturation to make a light gray kind of move to a shade that you want. And so like it's actually working with different light grays is another great way of learning HSB, because it doesn't seem like you do a lot by having like a 2 saturation, but it actually adds a lot to a design. When, like, let's say that your highly saturated color is blue, you can have your grays kind of work with whatever your primary color that you're using. And we're going to lighten this up a little. Okay, so now let's say that this is my neutral color. So these are the things that I don't want people to focus on, right? Now I'm going to pick something that is going to command some attention. How about a very bright turquoise? So when you're looking at this at your screen, where does your eye, when you're looking at it, where is it focusing right now?
First, left to right.
Mm-hmm.
You can still see other bars, but that's just not where you're focusing. Like, even if you're thinking about it, you're really just kind of naturally gravitating toward the brightest color, like a moth to the flame. But now, let me create a couple more bars here. Another big bar here. Okay, so now I'm going to get a bright red. Now when you look at this, where does your eyes gravitate towards?
It's still left to right, but I skipped the middle. Sorry, go ahead.
I was the same thing, but I was going to say before that if it would have been a red bar, just because when they present school data, they usually do it based on the school, and I know my school's red, so I would have gone right to the red, but I would have compared it real quickly to the purple and the gold of Central and Burke. So it's contextual, whenever.
Yeah, that's a great example, and we'll actually talk a little bit more about that after this. I'm glad you brought that up. Mm-hmm. But when you're looking at this and you're kind of just naturally just focusing on 2 different colors, do you notice a little bit of a tension when you're looking at it?
Like bouncing back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to add in some more.
So what'd you say the threshold was? 4 to 6 and sometimes just 2?
Yep. That's why I say like that like usually like there's a rule that like but generally less is better in my opinion. Let's get a little bit of electric blue here going. We need a bit of a darker purple.
It's just kind of like Jackson Pollock or something.
So now when you look at it, what are you focused on?
Nowhere.
Now, is it easy to look at this for very long? Not bad.
It's
Maybe
pretty.
it's just my monitor. Pretty. Oh. You like the design choice.
And for me, it would be naturally the 9 different schools that were, the 9 high schools.
Right. Generally, when you have this much highly saturated colors, it is difficult to focus on whatever you think is most important. And so, again, this goes into if you're having somebody focus on everything, then you're basically having them focus on nothing. But the question that, or we were talking about before, Ronnie, about how you associated that color with the school you had, you actually see that a lot of times. Like if, we're doing some kind of like research or like trying to like giving you words and then associating with the color beforehand. So like I would say something like tomato and then ask you what color would you think of? Well, a lot of times you're going to think of red. Mm-hmm. But another thing that's interesting with that is how much culture impacts that, where I don't know if I talked about this on Monday, or I don't remember, but in China, red is good luck. And in the United States, it's associated with stop sign but those are the common ones. But you just mentioned one just based on your personal experience, that those colors are associated with something else. And especially when it comes to performance, and that's what I was talking about before, like when you start making changes on data visualizations, and let's say that those are conditional formatting where green is good and red is bad, making changes on people's performance and stuff like that and how you represent it, you have a lot of power in how people are being judged, where they are being graded based on how well they're teaching kids, but you are actually creating that visual. You're creating the metrics on how to actually grade that performance. And it's not a guarantee that you have the right metrics that are capturing the performance accurately. That is actually ranking teachers from the best to the worst. And B, it's not a guarantee that you're representing that information in a way that accurately shows that performance correctly. So it could be like a number. Maybe there's a threshold that you think is important, but in reality it's not, but it's presented as important. And that could either be like a positive when it shouldn't be a positive, or a negative when it shouldn't be a negative. And so then you can get into like type 1 and type 2 errors, even if it's not like in an experiment setting. All right. Visual analysis. So statistics and data visualization, again, kind of like data visualization, UX design, they're similar, but slightly different. Yes, you're doing statistics in data visualization, but that's not the only part of your job. And you're not necessarily doing it like model building and that type of thing. You're not trying to do predictive analytics and that type of thing. What's interesting, though, is statisticians and data scientists, and if that is something that you would like to be in the future, then data visualization is still a topic that would interest you, because just like every other profession, data visualization can have an impact on how you do your work. And in this case, we're looking at residuals. And I don't know if anybody has taken a stats class, but residuals basically let you know if you have random error. If your residuals show a random pattern, then that shows that there isn't something that is affecting the results. That you're going to have a more accurate prediction when you have randomized residuals. And so one of the best ways to see that is visually, because if you just use a number in statistics, that it's not always going to be accurate. And this, when I asked in the last class, like, what is normal and what you're trying to find that normal, you can see that with a histogram or a distribution plot like you see here, which is a normalized distribution. And this is how a statistician thinks about it, but a data visualization person is doing the same thing. They're just not necessarily trying to find standard deviation and looking at it from this perspective. You can, and I often do, but this is, again, how a statistician can use a visualization to better understand their data. And the reason why that's important is because of Anscombe's quartet. Is anybody familiar with Anscombe's quartet? So this is a research paper done by a person named Anscombe. So that's one of the benefits of discovering something like this, that you get to have your name associated with the phenomena, and it gets to be in presentations like mine, which is a great honor. So all these statistics, when you're looking at this, if you can see that blue line, they're exactly the same. That same pattern. But the underlying data that created that line is very different. So if a statistician, in this very specific case, had these 4 different samples of data and then calculated it in this way, it would appear to be exactly the same data, that they would have the exact same insights. But as you can tell, there's big differences based on some having an outlier while the others are clustered together. Others have a more random pattern, and there's one that is, has a shape to it. So this, again, just kind of shows you the power of visualization, and that even, or especially the people who just want to see information in tables, this is the type of stuff that they would miss. Something that, if you look at a table, like a certain number, you could see that's a lot larger, but you really don't see how much larger it is. You don't really get that magnitude unless you can show that. And that's where visual perception of the human mind and how it perceives information is just so powerful, that data visualization tries to take advantage of that. Well, we are now to the review section. So what are these 4 things?
So nominal, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just said types of data.
Correct.
So nominal is like a Jersey number. Ordinal is a sequenced interval. We go to ratio. Ratio is like we talk about with currency. An interval, I think of it like time, but it's essentially evenly spaced apart numbers. So like a scale.
Temperature.
Temperature. That's
excellent.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, and time's interesting. Yeah, interval does sound more like a time than, but yeah, there's no end in time as far as we know. And there's our visual representations that everyone got correct. Well done. Okay. What is this? What's the significance of this?
This is the Tableau perspective of the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Pills.
Of the matrix. Yes, pills. There are 2 of them. And they have different colors.
Green pill and blue pill.
That's right. So whenever you go to it, like if you ever take another Tableau class and they go over the pills, you're going to start laughing. And then people are going to wonder why you're laughing. It's like, I've already been through this. All right, Tableau hands-on. All right, so this is actually going to be hands-on, where we are all going to share in the activity. So Tableau, we're going to look at Tableau calculations first. Actually, let me talk about this a little bit first. Okay, so when we were making charts last time, it was just pretty simple bar chart, scatter plot, and we're just kind of clicking on green pills and blue pills, and they were making charts, and so that was all excellent. I don't know if anyone noticed, but it defaulted to sum as the aggregation. And so you can have 3 levels of aggregations in Tableau. And that gets a little bit more confusing too when I start talking about LOD calculations, which I won't do today. But you can either have at record level, which is non-aggregated, or probably better put, disaggregated data. And then you have an aggregation, which is your sum, median, average, count. And then you have table calculations, which is an aggregation of an aggregation. So, yes, if further proof that we are in the matrix outside of the blue and green pill, we are now going into kind of inception territory of having an aggregation of an aggregation. We don't have to worry too much about table calculations right now. That's more of an advanced topic, but just have in the back of your mind, and hopefully that you can have it somewhere that it's going to be remembered in the future, that there are 3 levels of aggregations. And, if you can understand that, it's going to make kind of understanding like what Tableau is doing a lot easier. Okay, so we are going to go to Tableau now. Are there any questions while as I get Tableau up and going?
No.
No questions. Okay. And we are in Tableau. So does everybody got their Tableau open, ready to go? Thumbs up?
Sort of. It doesn't look quite the same, but do you want us to use the Superstore like last time, or just do something?
Yeah, we'll just use the Superstore like last time.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone saved their work from last time, because I still have my bar chart, scatter plot, and line chart, and map. I don't have to remake it.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Always remember to save your work. You'll thank me someday. Okay, everybody ready? Good.
Well, mine says Tableau has detected that the license on your system has changed. You must restart Tableau for the license changes to take effect. I'll try it. This is
Yeah, that should be fine. Just restart.
So I have to exit and restart. This could be something to demo. Okay. And just open the sample superstore. You must restart to continue this trial. Click register. Otherwise, click activate to activate the product with your product key or credentials.
Are you still in the trial?
Yeah.
You should be able to continue trial, I think. If you just started the trial Monday.
Right. It says I have expires in 11 days, but register now to start using the product so I can register or activate.
Well, just use the trial for now. You can activate it when trial is over.
I'm dealing with OPS, so let's see. Okay. All right. I think I'm in. Superstore.
All right. Superstore. Superstore.
Okay. It keeps popping up. I don't know. This could be a nightmare. Well, go ahead. It's using district equipment, because I'm taking the class on behalf of the district.
Right.
I might have to fight this tomorrow when I get to school to give me a
Okay.
license. It's a profiled managed machine and I don't have rights to do things on it.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. The security people's just, their whole job is to make us miserable. So
I know. Mm-hmm.
that's why they get into it. They like the misery they cause and the productivity they prevent.
Uh-huh.
All right. So I'm creating a new sheet. It's called Sheet 5. I spent a lot of time thinking about that name. And we are going to create a bar chart. So I'm going to go segment and I'm going to just do sales. And you can see here that I defaulted to sum of sales. So that's what Tableau is always going to default to for this type of data, our green pill, our continuous data. So there's a couple different ways they can manipulate this. So if I right click on that green pill, you'll see here that there's this measure. And I can then go to this pop-up menu. Oh, that's right. I have to, hold on. Okay, so now if you go to this menu and go to measure, you'll see there's this separate sub-menu. You have all these different options. So you have max, min, percentile state. So these are all aggregations that you can use. And so this is how Tableau is aggregating it. So if I go average, you can see it's a number that's much smaller.
Shut it down now.
I did.
Okay.
So why do you think the number is so much smaller? What is this? What is Tableau telling us right now? So we got 223, 233, 240, while before we had 1,706,429. It's quite a.
Sorry, can I take us back to how'd you get the segment? I missed that part.
Oh, you just can drag that up to the row shelf,
Okay.
or you can just double click it and it will do that. It should be there.
Can you explain what that term segment means? I mean, I guess I'm just
Oh, that's just the business
not
segment.
clear why would it's a
Oh,
what?
that's just it's the business segment. It's just there just because it has a good number of, I didn't want to have like too many items, Miller's Law. So I know it only had 3 items. So that's why I chose it. It's a business segment for the type of products that they're selling.
It's the consumer, corporate, home office. That's where that's coming from. Those are the 3 segments.
Yeah, business segments.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maura.
Mhm.
Okay, so does anyone have an answer to my original question? Why are we seeing such small numbers compared to before?
Because it's the average instead of the sum.
Correct. So what is it telling you though? What is the average saying?
The average sales of each segment.
Yes, correct. Well, the average. Um, so let me. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take order ID and then put it next to segment. So whenever you're confused about the data, and it's going to give you this little warning here, and that's to add all members. That's fine. I want to show all. This is showing you all the orders. And so whenever you get confused about how an aggregation is, and this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with visual analysis and disaggregated data. So this right now is a disaggregated view, even though that we're showing average sales. This is looking at that. I think this is a one-to-one. Pretty sure this is unique. So this is showing you all the sales at that order level. And so when you're summing it, you're adding all these orders together. When you're averaging it, you're looking at that average, the average order size, essentially.
David, I'm sorry to take you out of the moment. Mine just shows ABC for all of the order IDs. The order IDs look like order IDs, but instead of having numbers like what you have, I just have ABC listed.
Is it showing you a decent spread? Like, how many rows do you have?
Oh, a lot. But if I hover over it, there's like a pop-up that shows the average sale.
Oh, ABC. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the issue there is you don't have. Okay, yeah. So you put sales in text on the marks card if that's happening to you.
On the marks card.
Yep, text marks card. That's going to give you that label. I was like,
There we go.
ABC. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Yep. So that's actually a good thing to kind of like struggle with to see how that works. So yeah, so we got rows here. So we got segment, and then order ID is here. So this is nested within segment. And then you have average sales on the text marks card. So like if I put this on color, I got a heat map. Oh, no way. How did that happen? So there's different ways that you can manipulate. Okay, so now if I take order off, does that number make more sense now? That average number. Or that average aggregation.
Yeah, it's believable because I saw a few orders for $2, $4, one for 1,000.
Okay, so now we're going to switch to. Well, actually, we're going to take measure names and measure values. And there we go. And then I'm going to move segments up the columns, have measure names. And so like if you ever like need to make a table and, it's just like something you have to do, I would recommend looking at measure name and measure values, which is just another way that Tableau kind of sets up everything. So you have measure names on rows, segment on columns, and measure values on text. And I'm going to take sales off here. And then for all these different values, we're just going to keep sum of sales. And then, so by default, Tableau is going to.
I cannot find measure names. Is it under
Oh, you,
prep?
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm,
You may not have a version that has it. I don't know.
okay. I don't think I'm seeing it at least. Measure values, but not measure names.
Uh,
Oh, I found it. It was just in light gray. Okay.
oh, I see.
Continue.
Okay. Okay. So by default, it's going to list all your metrics there, and it's going to also default it to that sum of sales, or so, it's got basically sum all the different elements, or count if it's discrete. So you can see now how the aggregation impacts what you're seeing. So I'm going to add in median next underneath sales. And if you're wondering how to duplicate things really quick, if you have a Mac, you press Command and then you click and drag. If you're on Windows, you can hold Control.
Is there any way you could zoom in on your screen just a little bit?
Thank you. Yes, I'm leaning in.
And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh.
I may not be able to zoom in, but I can do something else. I can make things bigger.
So the part that I'm kind of staring at is your measured values. I'm trying to see what you have listed there. That's where I'm.
Oh, sorry. Sum of sales, average sales, and median sales. Yeah, I wish I could zoom in more on that side of things.
So sum of sales, average sales, and median sales.
Yes.
You told us how to duplicate things, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay,
So if you if you hold on to Command or click on Command on the keyboard for a Mac, and then left click drag, and then I believe it's Control for Windows, left click drag on a pill, it will duplicate it. It's a very good time saver. Okay, so if you see here, median sales is much lower than average sales. So if anybody is well versed in statistics, what does that tell you?
Median is below average,
Yes,
and you have a few high ones.
correct. Yep, it tells you there's a skew to the data. There are some outliers to the upside, which isn't surprising. When you're looking at sales data, there's going to be a couple of people who just splurge and kind of mess up your average. So that's always something that's kind of good to look at to see how much skew in the data is impacting, because 52 is very different than 224. And so they're a little bit different insights too. If you're looking at what is the most common order size, then you'd probably want to have a median or a mode versus an average, which is going to be impacted by those So if we're talking about Pareto principle, that's how Pareto principle can have that impact as well. So if you're looking at it based on dollars. Okay. Then we're going to add another one. So we now have count. And I think everybody knows what count of sales would mean. It's the number of records. And then we're going to go minimum. And maximum. Anybody having any issues?
I am, but I'm texting my principal at the same time saying we got to get this
Is-
resolved because
How did you add the count part? How do you add like a new?
So are you talking about how do you add a new pill?
Yeah.
So that's just command. If you're using a Mac, right? So
Yeah.
command and then left click and then just drag it up to.
Do you have to have it clicked? So, wait, command left click and then drag?
Yep.
So where I'm at is I just figured out how to get the measure values to show up. And I've got average sales, sum of sales. And if I want to add more green pills to the measure values box, I just right click new calculation.
For more green pills,
Yeah.
I think it's control and then left click for Windows. And then just drag that up to the marks menu. And then you can right click and then switch your aggregation.
Like if I want to get a median,
Yeah.
I do the control and then left click.
Yeah, just to get you another pill.
Yeah.
And then drag it up to the marks menu. Because if you just drag it down here in the measure values, you already have that value and it won't let you do it. And so
Okay.
then you have to change the aggregation up here and then bring it down.
Okay, but I don't have a median anywhere. So I would do the control and then left click, and it gives me new calculation, clear shelf, select all.
So if you right click on it, it should be measure and then it should be median.
Oh, and my measures are gone.
Mine like disappear when I drag them up.
Yeah, mine just disappeared too.
What do you mean disappeared?
Like I used to have a. So in that second column from the left, it says pages, it's empty, filters, it's empty, marks, and I've got 2 green pills in there. And a moment ago, I had another box below that said measure values. But when I did that context click, the measures box went away.
Well, back button to where it reappears.
That's a good point. Let me do back button. Okay, now it reappears.
Okay, and so then this is just so you either press Command or Control depending on if you're Windows or Mac. So
Okay.
Mac is command.
Because like right now, I don't even have that max green pill. So how do I make that max green pill show up in the measure values?
Okay, so that one that I created. So like what you do is it really doesn't matter which green pill you use. It could be any one that you have on there.
Okay.
So in this case, you could just take average. So you're just going to hold down Control if you're Windows, Command if you're Mac, and then left click, and then drag that up to the marks menu.
Okay.
I don't know if this helps, but when I stopped using my mouse and used my trackpad, it worked.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know why. Because every time I was dragging with my mouse, it would drag up and then disappear.
Magic mouse. Magic
Yes.
mouse.
Or
Yes.
yeah. So the
Yes.
trackpad is now I'm things are
Yes.
working now.
And I am seeing something different now because instead of it going away, it essentially duplicates it. And now that it duplicates
Exactly.
it, okay.
Then exactly. And that's how you can move really fast, is when you can duplicate those pills.
Okay.
And then if you need to like make those changes, slight variations. And so that's like a very common thing you're going to do in like visual exploration. And will make you a lot faster than the other noobs trying to learn Tableau. So you can run circles around them. Yeah, so then from there, then you can just choose your other aggregations, and then you quickly have a pretty good statistical summary of the data.
I'm there. I figured it out.
Excellent.
Mine looks the same as yours.
Perfect.
Had to
Really,
stop
you had the font this large too?
No. Well,
I'm kidding.
my screen is really
You're
big,
good.
so it does look the same. But
Okay, good. That's good.
yeah, that was really driving me crazy. I was like, I'm holding command, and every time I would drag it up, it would disappear.
Well, I'm glad you figured it out.
So-
That would also drive me nuts too.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be frustrating. How we doing, Michael?
I think I'm getting there. Kind of leaning in to see you have listed there.
Oh, sum of sales, average sales. Yeah, you can see it. It's right here too. So that's sum of sales, average sales, median sales, count of sales, min sales, max sales.
Did you guys register your trial? I'm just curious.
Yes. Generally, it's good.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Yeah, I
maybe
think so
that's
And I think I registered it twice. I did it online, and then when I opened like the desktop view, they had me do it a second time.
I was just gonna say that's what maybe this is the second time. I know I've done it before, but I'm
Mhm.
just try just so I
Yeah, those Tableau salespeople, they were relentless.
well that and then OPS, but it's the
Yeah, when the Tableau salespeople see a large school district email registering for your free trial, that's going to be like chum in the water.
they've already called me. They've left a message. They've done. That's what I'm gonna call and see if the district how many licenses we have because I know there's probably one sitting around that I just want to get my hands on it. So it's going on
Yeah.
their device.
Well, even if there's one that's not available, regardless of the organization, I guarantee you that there's someone who has one that isn't using it. So
Exactly. And my principal's
always check the
willing
usage
to buy
statistics.
one, but I don't think it's going to charge us $800 for a business one. But
Have any issues there, Michael?
I think I'm getting there. So I'm getting min and max created right now.
Perfect.
I just realized mine doesn't look the same.
Oh no.
You have 3 bars in your marks menu, but I can't read what they say.
Oh, don't worry about that.
Okay, those don't matter. Okay, good. Thankfully.
Yeah, that was just to show the.
Yeah, get rid of
Okay.
those.
Okay. Now we're good.
They were good.
It was
Now
my bad. Now you're good.
yours matches mine now.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm matching yours now. The teacher has become the student.
So something that I've noticed with mine is that I have a difference in count versus just a straight count. And I'm not sure how I got that because I go to measure count.
How do you mean difference in the count?
The text. So if I read the text in the sheet, well, sorry, I'll start with a simpler piece. The measures values has 6 green pills, like you have 6, except for there is a delta sign to the right of count, min, and max. And then if I look at the text
Okay.
that's shown.
So a delta sign means it's a table calculation. So remember I was talking about table calculations before? That's how you signify that it that is an aggregation of an aggregation. So you must have, so if I go here and go to quick table calculations or add table calculation, you'll see here that I can add those. So the first step is an aggregation. The second step is a table calculation. So if I added that, you can see I'll get a little delta there.
Okay, so I just found the quick table calculation.
And then you can clear it by right-clicking and go clear.
Ah, nice. Okay, let me do that one. Hey, cool. Thank you.
Yep. So that's like when I'm saying like aggregation, then aggregation of an aggregation is you can kind of move between those levels. You can create one and then you can bring it back by adding or clearing it.
Cool. Okay, so sales. Cool. Okay.
It may seem difficult, but pretty soon you'll be experts at making tables in Tableau because that's a very common request.
Nice, nice, nice. Cool. I think I'm there.
Now you want to see something cool?
Yes. Always.
All right, we're going to just go to Mark's menu and we're going to switch it to bar. And then we're going to take measure values and we're going to put it on size.
I put measure value on what? On size? Okay.
Yep.
Done.
So
Yeah.
now you can see you got a bar chart with a bunch of different metrics instead of a table. So if you wanted to, you can take profit, put it under sales, and so we can get I can make this look a little less hideous. So just a couple of different adjustments. You went from a table to a small multiple bar chart.
Nice.
Yep. Well, it is that time where we typically have our breaks, and I am a creature of habit, and I think it's good to have a 10-minute break at the top of every hour. So you will now get 10 minutes, and I will see you back at 8:13, where I always give you that extra minute because I'm generous.
I'm gonna go find some lights.
Sounds good.
And I did get it to go once I registered it, David, but I can rewatch this part to recreate this.
Right.
So you'll be able to tell me where to go watch it.
Yeah, it's yeah. There's a YouTube video that's being created. So yeah.
Okay. I'll catch up with you when the break's over then. I don't want to keep you from your break.
Oh, no worries. Do you need anything other than just another video?
Right. Or maybe after class, I might walk through it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I got it office hours after class. So
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
yep, no worries.
So, David, in the spirit of the correct vernacular, I have increased the hue, I've increased my saturation, and brightness is definitely there. Oh, you know what? I can't hear anything. Let me change this.
That was
I think
me.
I can
My
hear you
microphone
now.
is off. I said,
Oh, okay.
that was me. I was saying that a little bit of color knowledge is very dangerous. So,
Yeah.
hey, that's good though. It helps you be creative.
Great, great. Whole lot of lateral thinking. Got
There
it.
you go. Just be careful on who you send your creativity to at work.
Yes.
Keep clip art to the minimum.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna name our wonderful creation here small multiple. Just so we remember what that is. Yeah, small multiple could be any chart. It doesn't have to be a bar chart. It could be a line chart, which would turn into a spark line, or any other type of chart. It just means it's a repeated pattern. So you can kind of see that under different segments. All right. We're going to create a new worksheet where we click that icon at the bottom of the tableau. And the next thing we're going to look at are basically the same things that we did with the table before, but visually. So this is kind of going into Anscombe's quartet of just kind of seeing things visually instead of just through the numbers. So these are what I would consider more data exploration charts of kind of just understanding what the data is and kind of understanding what the shape is. And for these, which is the histogram and the box plot, I would recommend using Show Me instead of building these from scratch because it's just so much faster. So there is no shame, even someone who's used Tableau for many years, to use Show Me. So don't feel embarrassed about that. It's something that, think of it as a productivity hack, and you'll feel much better about it. So I click on Sales, and then I'm going to go to Histogram. And it gives me something like this. So is anybody not familiar with the histogram? Do you know why this is different than a bar chart?
I would say the reason why this is different than a bar chart is that this has kind of like bins to it, where a bar chart, well, maybe I'm not as confident as I first thought I was.
I think you're going down the right path. How many blue pills are we showing right now?
We're doing it by count, so I mean, oh, no blue pills.
None.
No blue pills. So it's a univariate. We're only looking at it one measure with no dimension. And so that's what the bin is that it creates the bins of so it basically creates categories based on the values. So when you create a histogram for the first time, you'll see there's a new value that didn't exist before called sales bin. So if you right click on that and click edit, you'll see that there's a size of bins.
David, for me to get just those bars to appear,
Yeah,
it isn't incumbent on what we did on the previous sheet that I wasn't able to complete, is
correct.
it?
No, nope, this is brand
So
new.
I have some sales up there and the count of sales in the rows, and I went and tried to click on the histogram and I can't.
Oh, no. So take off sum of sales and count of sales from the columns and rows,
Okay.
and then just clicking on sales just once, not twice. So it's not in your view. So you want a completely
Okay.
blank sheet. Then
Okay.
click on show me, and then you should have histogram show up. And then you just
then
click that.
So show me and then histogram. And histogram is like grayed out, like I can't click on histogram.
You don't have anything in your view right now?
Right, nothing on the sheet. I have the sales bullet there under the
Can I
orders.
help?
Yeah.
So Ronnie, I had that same thing, and it was because I didn't click on sales. So on the far left, if you don't have sales in green,
Yeah, I do.
oh, okay. Sorry, I'll back out again.
Wait,
That's-
double click sales and then go to show me and it should pop up.
Yep. And then sales came into the rows column.
And then go to show me and it should pop up.
Yeah, that should work too.
Right, but I have show me just gives me the whole list, of available things to show. But I just
Should be
have
this
the
one.
bar. Yeah, the one. Yeah, and that's the one I'm trying to select, and it's grayed out. But when I double clicked, like Mara told me to do, I just got sales. Sum of sales went to the rows thing. And according to yours, it's bins. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, the bin should be automatically created when you click on the histogram. So you should only have to click, since it's a univariate, you should only have to. So if you look at
dragging them off, I'm starting from scratch.
Okay.
You said single click on sales.
Yeah, just make it active. So
Yep.
so sales. So just left click it once.
Show me is over on the side, and right now it's the third one down, which is the horizontal bars, and I'm trying to go down to the
vertical bars.
So it should be second column, second.
Should look like a pyramid.
Oh, history.
Like a triangle.
Yep, I got it. I was clicking on the wrong one. I was looking at what was highlighted in yours, and it looked like a different one. There.
Oh, sorry.
Garrett.
Yeah.
You had maybe your mouse was on Garrett, so I got it. Thank you.
Yep. And so, like, if you ever have a question, just when you hover over it, it'll tell you what the names of them are.
Yep, I saw that now. But I was looking what yours said, and yours said Garrett, so your mouse must have been on the. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. No, that's not a problem.
Okay.
It's okay. So what we are going to do now, so you can see in the parameters, you might have parameters. I don't know. Depends on what superstore you have. You'll have profit bin size. We are going to create a sales bin size. Okay. So this is does anybody remember what parameters are from the last class? We didn't actually go through on how to create them, but I did talk about them a little bit at a very high level. Nope.
Sorry, no.
Okay, so parameters are for including user interactivity, and this will also help us kind of get into Tableau calculations, because you really, like 99% of the time, and you can't really use a parameter without a calculated field. Okay. So we're going to right click in the parameter area and create a parameter. And we're going to call it sales bin size. And we're going to change the data type to an integer. current value, we're going to have 400. And then for allowable values, we're going to have range. And the minimum is going to be 1. The maximum is going to be 1,000.
Where do you click to get that window to pop up?
The create parameter menu,
Yeah.
Lower
right
left
click.
corner.
lower left, right click on parameter, and then you should have create parameter in the submenu.
I'm being impatient and it keeps disappearing. Ah, okay. So I have parameters and it says profit bin size and top customer.
Right, those are the ones that are already created. We're creating
Okay.
a new one.
Yeah.
So it should have a right click create parameter in that area.
Just go outside of one of those little bullets or one of those selections. So you got
Yeah,
some
in the white area.
right,
Exactly.
right click.
Perfect, Ronnie.
Yes. I'm just not getting it.
Okay, no problem. So if you right click here, you should have a submenu that looks like this. It should be the second option. So you have create calculated field, create parameter.
If you go to the right,
Show
of the,
per create. I wasn't okay. All right. So what is
All
the? I
So-
see. Okay.
So we're calling it sales bin size.
Okay.
Data type is integer. Current value is 100. Allowable value is going to be a range.
range.
The minimum is 1. The maximum is 1,000. And step size is 25. And this should be 400. Current value 400. Give me a thumbs up when everyone's good. All right. So I click OK. And next, we're going to right click on sales bin. And then we are going to, or click on size of bin, and we're going to make it sales bin size. So in this case, we're actually not going to, what was the question?
you just hit the edit when you right clicked on sales bin. You went down to edit, correct?
Correct. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Edit bin. And then we're going to have sales bin size instead of the 447.
Are you on a Mac as well, David?
I am a Mac.
Because
Yes.
my OK and cancel are opposite yours. They're in reverse.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
okay, that's all right.
I used to be Windows, and then I switched to Mac.
I like them both, so I just
It
enforce.
was a tough transition,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm in the groove now.
Right.
I keep getting edit param instead of
Are you
Edit.
editing the sales bin?
sales bin size. No, I see. Okay. Got it. What are we changing things to?
So it should have size of bin. Go to sales bin size.
Okay, I get it now.
Okay. So can anybody predict what we just did? What did we do?
So
We're changing our x-axis. We're changing our dependent axis, our independent axis.
No, we're
Okay.
scaling it the same.
We just increased our bin size.
Well, actually, technically, since it defaulted at 447 and we're having it as a default value at 400, we're decreasing our bin size.
But why'd the min and max go from 1 to 1,000? No.
Well, that's because we created what's known as that parameter, which provides user interactivity. And so we're going to have a menu that will allow someone to switch the value instead of having it static. It will be dynamic.
Hmm.
So if the bin size is going down, do you expect to be more bars or fewer bars?
More bars?
Correct. Good job. So we're going to click OK. Then the sales bin size and the parameters are useless unless we show them that we can actually use them. So you just right click on sales bin size and go to show parameter. And then you'll see there's a check mark if it's already there. And then you can experiment by start moving your slider around to see what happens to your chart.
And where are you going to move that chart around in the corner?
Just the parameter. So if you show parameter, right click
Right.
sales bin size, show parameter, it should be in the top right. It should automatically show up there, right here.
I got to shrink it and then go back up so I can read what it is. I see. Gotcha.
So I'm digging this, except for I think the x-axis is still way too large because there's nothing out even like past halfway. Is there a way
Well,
I
there
can
is.
scale? Okay.
You have data there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't do that unless you have data there.
Okay. Glad I
If
asked.
you-
That's your outlier.
If you go to sales bin size and bring it down to 1, there's a little tick mark all the way at the end.
Ah.
Yep.
Yeah, sure enough. Glad you did it.
See, and there's that outlier that was affecting our average and median numbers in the table. And so, like I said, it helps us look at it from Anscombe's quartet, individually seeing what that outlier looks like, which was so tiny, Michael almost missed it.
Oh no, I did miss it.
No, you got it. Yep. So once you visualize the data right, then you can see it, and it's just one of those things. Like until you actually see the data, then it's difficult to really get the understanding. All right. Well, that was a lot. We got histograms, parameters. It's like intermediate topics for a beginner's class. Good job, team. All right.
Woo!
Okay, so let's go. Trying to think which one I want to do next. Let's try box plot. So we're going to create a new sheet.
Were we labeling that last sheet something? Were we calling it something or just leaving it sheet 2?
Histogram.
Oh,
Yep, you can call it histogram. Thank you. That's a great name.
Got to make things easy.
So straight to the point.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to look at sales, and then we're going to look at. So while you're either, if you're Windows, Control, Mac, Command, you're going to click on, and we're going to click on region, which is a geospatial value. And then we will see in our show me, which I call box plot. For whatever reason, I like to say box and whisker plot. I think that's unnecessary detail. I think box plot's fine.
so you did region first.
It doesn't matter the order. You just click once, and then if you're Mac, Command, click the other pill, and then if you're Microsoft, control. So you click one and then control, hold control and click the other one. So you have two highlighted at the same time.
And then you go up to the show me and do
Box and whisker plots, which is right above the packed bubbles, which is a chart I will not teach you because I have ethics.
I want to.
It sounds like no affinity.
So it's right above. Can you hover your mouse? Oh, right there. I see it. I see it.
Yep.
Box and whiskers. Okay. I have to shrink this and make it bigger each time so I can see what you're doing.
Okay. So you can see here that this spread's not very good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to disaggregate this data. It's too aggregated. So we're going to take order ID. We're going to drop it into detail. That looks better. Then we're going to take region and put it in columns.
Region and put it into columns.
Yep, column shelf, sorry.
Yeah. thank you.
Column shelf.
Where was
Yep.
order ID going? Because I missed.
Just
how we-
detail. You just drag that on detail. Yep.
And do I do
we
this
just want to.
control? I don't. I just drag it onto detail.
Yep, this is just a drag. Yep. We're just putting it in the view. So like if you remember the Rubik's Cube, we're basically just breaking this into tiny little segments.
But then what happened to region?
Put it on the column shelf.
Okay, you just asked to go up there. All right.
Yep. So that
Alright.
creates 4 of them. So can anybody find that outlier that we saw in the histogram?
Yep.
What
Slow
region
dive
is it in?
South.
Very good.
23,661.
Yep. Someone decided to make a large purchase
In the South.
in the South. So you can do things too, like you can create a calculated field for more of the, I mean, we're not going to do it for this class, but like you can create a calculated field to exclude outliers from your other views. So it doesn't impact like your averages. Or you could also use median like we were talking about before. So this is why the average and the median are so different. So it's not just that one outlier, you have many that are above that box and whisker range. So this is a good example of disaggregated data too. So instead of averaging it, we're actually showing the data, but then we're also putting a visual representation of what that center of that data is with the whisker plot. But the circles are still there, so you can see how outliers are impacting it. Okay, so that's box and whisker. Or a box plot. I think it's simpler.
I get where the box and whisker though came from.
Yes, yes. There is they had a reason for doing it. All right. So we're gonna create a new worksheet. This time we are going to put state on rows and sales on columns. So we should have a bar chart. As a general rule, whenever you have a situation like this with a bar chart, with a lot of values especially, you should always sort it. And I probably mentioned that before because I always harp on that. But that just makes it so much easier to read.
And where did you go to do that sort again?
You hover over the x-axis, and there should be a sort icon that you can click.
And on the bar up top too, right?
Yes, there's actually like several different ways you can sort.
Okay.
You could also go from the top menu here, and then also the menu up here too. There's just like a ton of ways. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my marks from a bar to a circle. So I get something that looks like this. Everyone still with me?
Yep.
All right. So now we're going to create something called a reference line. So a reference line is basically like something that provides context.
One question,
And-
quick, David. On yours has that blue bar across the bottom.
Oh, that's highlighted.
Oh, got it. Sorry. All
That's right. So right click on that axis and you bring up the reference line. So the reference lines are associated with the axis. They provide context based on that one value. So it's also univariate. So in this case, we're looking at sales. And this will not get impacted by the blue pill. This is just purely based on the green pill sales. We've got 4 different options here. We're going to start looking at the average of sum of sales, which is the value that we're looking at. And then we're going to look at the median. And now you can, again, visually see average is more than the median because of the outliers.
I need
In this
to go
case, it's
back.
the state.
I was right clicking on the axis. Is that not what I was supposed to do where you had it highlighted?
Yeah, right click, and then there should be add reference line.
Okay, I was trying to edit the access. Sorry. And so
No worries.
when you
So you-
got to edit the access, then what I need to select.
No, when you edit the reference line,
I mean, the reference line. That's what I meant.
I'm sorry, add reference line, since you haven't created one yet.
Yep. Yep.
It should be sum of sales, so it's a line, entire sum of sales average.
So
And then,
that's
okay.
fine. Okay.
And then you do the same thing, but this time median to add 2.
Okay. And
So you have to go through the process twice.
yeah. And it's the average and median. Got it. Sorry.
Yep, no worries. Okay, so now we can see that we are showing that same information that there's outliers in this data set. We're going to remove these, remove all reference lines. We're going to forget they exist, wipe them from our memory. And we're going to start over and add some more reference lines. We're going to go entire table, band, and we're going to go average, from average to median. So you should have something that looks like this.
That's a nice hot air balloon launch passing by a skyscraper.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, we're going to remove that now. So we basically created the same thing with the band. But what I really wanted everyone to create, I was just kind of, building you up to the actual thing. We're going to go to distribution. And then I'm going to click on value, pull down, and we're going to go 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. And it's going to be sum of sales, and we're going to go maximum.
I might need you to go back to, was that percentage of, was it sum of sales and then just maximum? Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So you click OK. And if you don't want the labels, you can click none for those. Okay, so let's get rid of these grid lines. So formatting is one of the more annoying things. We'll go more in depth in formatting later. But right now, just right-click anywhere on the view. Click on Format. We'll bring up your Format menu to the left. And there's 5 icons. Usually the ones, if you want to get rid of lines, are going to be the last 2. And so what you do, when you want to just get rid of lines, you don't really have to necessarily know what you're looking at yet. But just know that you go to the second to last icon and you look for anything that is potentially causing some type of line. In this case, sheet has nothing. So I go to rows and there's nothing. And then I have columns, I have nothing. So that's clear. So the last icon, I have sheet. There's nothing on grid lines. Rows, there's nothing. Columns, there's something. So I get rid of that. And that looks a lot better. So if you want the shortcut, it's the 5th icon, and you go to columns. And then you go to grid lines and go to none. So I'm not a huge fan of the contrast of the colors here because I just don't think blue on gray looks great. So we're actually going to go to color and we're going to change it to either black or a very dark gray. So to do that, just a manually color change, because this isn't based on the data. This is just based on your color preference. You just click on the color and you pick a very dark, either dark gray or black.
And what did that actually, just made the dots solid black?
Yeah, it created more contrast between the reference distribution and the background, so it's easier to see.
Okay.
So you may wonder, why did we do this? Well, this is actually a very nice worksheet to create a chart within a dashboard. We may not get to all of them today, but it does tell you some interesting things. So I'm going to change the alignment to, so you just right click this, go to format, and then it should be right there so you get header alignment to left. Makes it a little cleaner.
Can you do that one more time? You're on Rhode Island, and then you did what?
It's just, it doesn't matter what state. You can just right click it. And then there'll be a menu and go to format. And then there's alignment that should be. So you'll see it's highlighting header, which is the header of the chart. So if you're ever trying to change that, then you want to have the header option selected, but it's there by default. And then you just have alignment to left instead of automatic. Next, we're going to edit the axis. And instead of just having automatic, we're going to go fixed. And the one on the left, we're going to go fixed start 0. And the second one, we're going to have as automatic.
Okay, because I cannot see on my little iPad screen, I have to go shrink in and shrink back out. Where did you click axis from?
The sales axis, the x-axis. So just in this case, you edit the axis. Remember what you clicked for the reference line first?
Yep. Like I said,
This time you do it.
Yep. I have to zoom in and zoom out every time because I can't see what you're doing up in the little menu.
Sure.
So I'm constantly zooming in. And
Yeah, no
zooming out
worries.
so I can read. Okay, so editing the axis, sorry.
Yep.
And then what am I pushing there? Fixed?
So it's range is fixed, and then fixed start 0, and then automatic for the second one.
And I just type in 0, huh?
Correct.
And to get out of there, you just close it.
Correct. So we're going to call this sales dots. And we're going to duplicate it. So you just right click on sales dots, and then you'll have a submenu for duplicate. Then you'll have sales dots 2. We're going to rename this and call it profit dots.
I gotta
Okay,
get
I
a
missed
projector.
that one.
Yeah, I can't go fast enough zooming in and zooming out. I gotta get this projected on my wall or something.
No worries. So it's just right click on sales dots on your worksheet, and then there should be a duplicate option in the submenu.
Oh, like you named
Okay.
the sheet sales doc.
You named the
Yes.
sheets.
Sorry.
I see.
I'm
And
sorry.
naming the thing up top, sales dot.
Yes.
Edit the title, and we gotta do the tab. So this is sales dot.
Yep.
Sales dot. All right. Okay, let's go now. Click on that sheet 4, and you just did copy.
Actually, on second thought, instead of profit dots, we're going to call them median sales dots. So we don't have to like change a bunch of stuff. And then the other sales dots we'll call sum of sales dots.
But to copy the sales dots, or the sum of sales dots.
Yeah, you just right click it and then go to duplicate.
Okay. And the new one you called median sales dots, right?
Yes. And just thinking about it again, I was overthinking it. So we're going to change it back to sum of profit dots.
Sum of profit dot?
No, trust me, it's worth it. You're on a journey with me. Don't worry, it will be worth it. I'm not purposely trying to confuse everyone.
We're just getting practice. profit.
That's right. You're on an iterative journey with me in Tableau.
So the n-1 sheet is sum of profit dots, and the n should be median profit.
But this is sum of sales dots and then sum of profit dots.
Ah, okay, all right,
Okay.
thank you.
So we're going to go to sum of sales dots. It's going to make sense, like why it got messed up. So I'm going to press Command since I'm Mac, and if you're Windows, you're Control. And we're going to go to the column shelf to the sum of sales, and we're going to drag it to the right. So now we got 2 of these charts without having to
And
duplicate the
On
sheet.
the Windows, so I'm gonna do Command
Correct.
or no Control. Sorry, right? Control.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. You could,
Control and then right click.
left click, and then just drag it to the right.
Oh, that's right. Okay, got it. All right, so we have 2 of those. Got it.
Okay. So we are going to then go to average.
And where did you go to average at?
So you right click it,
Okay,
Yep.
got it. Got it. Yeah.
and then we got the measure in the sub menu, and then you just switch it to average.
Got it.
And then we're going to do that again.
Just copying that again. So.
And then we're going to go to median. Then we're going to do it again. This time we're going to go min. And we're going to do it again.
Okay, wait a minute. What was the?
And max.
I must have went on top of one. I've got average. Where did sum go?
Oh, you may have replaced it on accident.
Well, or is there a scroll bar left to right? No.
No, there shouldn't be. It should automatically populate.
Okay, so we have 5 total, correct?
Correct. Sum of sales, average sales, median sales, minimum sales, maximum sales.
All right, let me go. I can hardly, my eyes just don't feel good. So
That's all right.
Sum, median, no, sum, average, median.
Yep.
So David, I got lost a little bit ago. You said wax on, wax off.
I did?
No, I'm
I
kidding.
don't remember saying that. No, I'm kidding you.
I'm like, wax on, wax off.
Sure. Do you want to share your screen?
Me or Ronnie?
Actually, before that, if you don't mind staying after like a little bit, I don't want to keep more. Did you get this
I'm
done?
there.
Or I meant Mara.
Yeah, I'm
You're
here.
good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just quickly, since we only got 3 minutes left, don't worry, I got 30 minutes after for office hours. But do you see any interesting insights in presenting information this way that you missed from the table view?
I think you can present a more dense amount of information in a still aesthetically pleasing way. So yeah, I see, stories popping out.
It's a lot of information, isn't it? 5 metrics, and you're seeing the complete spread across 50 states. And what the distribution does is this is, I think, a really nice alternative, just your standard bar chart, because it really has what they call a good data to ink ratio, where you're very informative, but you're not using, in this case, the highly saturated or focus colors black. And it's just really easy on the eyes. And the other thing is that the distribution background kind of gives you even more information about where those percentages are between the max and the different groupings. So it's really helpful for like seeing where the outliers are and where there's groups between different items.
Right, because if we only had the sum of sales, we'd have said, hey, California's got it, they're rocking it. But instead, you can see Florida and Indiana really have.
Right. And then you also see too, Wyoming is greatly impacted more than others based on. So that's actually like if you wanted to see it like in a different way, you could exclude Wyoming, and that should give you a really different look. But you'll notice that there's a greater spread for a lot of the values in the ones with the lower sample size, which are at the bottom. So that's one of the sources of variation, is you have lower sample sizes. All right, so that is 9 o'clock. So if you are wanting to do other things, then this is your time to do so. But I will be here for another half hour if you want to still talk about Tableau. So,
Anything that we need to do to prep for Monday?
save the work here. Other than that, no, I don't think so. I'll try to get another data set that isn't Superstore so that we have something else fun to work on.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Appreciate your time. As always, it's great seeing everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everyone. See you Monday.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey,
And,
Michael, did you need help still?
Oh,
I know Ronnie
no.
does.
No, I was just kidding about the wax on, wax off, right? Like you had a cadence
I
going.
see.
No, you had a
I
cadence
see.
going, and I was like,
Oh, okay.
this Mr. Miyagi thing,
Okay.
and I'm like,
I-
okay,
I
I'll just
knew
do it.
you-
I'll just do it.
Oh, I see. Okay. I knew you were kidding. I just didn't know that you actually were following along. So that's
Yeah.
perfect. So
No, I got it. We're cool.
awesome.
All right, have a good one.
And
All right, have a good weekend.
Michael, your phone number ends in the 8910 or the 4160 when you texted us earlier. I just want to get it in my.
Yeah, so my cell ends with 4160. I'm not sure about the other one. And then David, just to kind of loop you in, we had there's a contact sheet that's in the Google Drive, and that's how we
Okay.
have everybody's cell phone numbers, and it's like email addresses too. And so when I didn't have the URL at first, I was kind of like, oh no, not again. So I texted them like, hey, do you have the URL? So just context them
Right.
what we're chatting about.
Gotcha.
Excellent. And I'll get Mara on the other because I couldn't get the Google thing to pull up on me or for me either.
Oh, the Google Drive.
Yeah, because I'm on a new laptop that they haven't installed certain access. So
It's still
But I
locked down.
Yeah.
Well,
All
if
right,
you weren't
I'll
such a
let you-
dangerous user, Ronnie, I mean,
what's that?
if you weren't
I
such
have
a
to have
dangerous
this
user,
straight.
they would back it off. But they got to be so careful.
Yeah.
They gotta
Sorry.
control
All
the
right.
students, but the teachers too, and the admin. So,
That's right.
all right,
All right.
David, if you don't mind,
Have a
just
great one.
All right. See you,
helping
Michael.
me figure out where the small
Sure, Ronnie.
multiple, because that's where I had to re-register the device.
Oh, right.
So that's the
The small multiple
slide
one,
if we
right?
get back to that tab.
Yeah. So it's measure names on rows.
Okay, measure measure names, and I got to go back to, I got the format. Okay. Measure names.
You can always just search it. You can use the search and just start typing measure.
Measure. Measure names. Okay, that and that.
And then
then
segment
the
is in columns.
columns. Got that, and then we got